Hello and welcome to our Roundup 101 workshop. For those of you who might not know this voice, I am Haley Meyer. I'm the 4-H agent here in Tom Green County, and today's presentation is going to be focused completely on our county Roundup contest that is happening at the end of March. So as a quick reminder, before you can even compete in this contest at the end of the month, you do have to be registered in 4-H Online as a 4-H member. If you are not, you will be ineligible to compete at the county contest. So please, if you're not registered, make sure to get registered on 4-H Online. And if you have any problems, please feel free to contact the office, and we can try to help you out in whatever way we can. So over the next few slides, we'll talk a little bit about the contests that are offered at both county and district Roundup, as well as some different tips and tricks to kind of help you get started on this process. So the contests that are offered at both our county and district Roundup are going to be our educational presentations, public speaking, and share the fun. So yes, we do have 3 contests on the same day, and you can participate in 2 of these contests at both county and district, as well as state for our senior 4-Hers. Senior 4-Hers, just make sure that these contests do not overlap at Roundup. So our first contest that we're going to talk about is our public speaking contest. So our public speaking contest is going to be an individual contest that we have. So you will write a speech that is about 5 to 8 minutes long, no longer than 8 minutes, and then be able to present that before a set of judges. There are no visual aids allowed for this contest, and when it comes to the information that you're using in your speech, contestants are required to use information that is in fact factual and can be supported through adequate documentation. Another thing with public speaking is you have to know this information that you are talking on, because there is an option or a chance for the judges to ask you questions related to your topic area. So when you're writing your speech, make sure you grab all of the information you possibly can and learn about that topic as you're doing this research. So as I mentioned with our public speaking contest, the topics are whatever you would like to talk on, and it should be a topic that is meant to persuade others regarding this issue. So these are just some sample topics that I found online. So it could be something about the future of agriculture and the different technologies that are coming, increasing minimum wage or decreasing minimum wage. A good one that people always talk about is ending daylight savings. So any of these topics can work, whatever you're passionate about, and something that you see that there's a lot of research on. It could be a current issue that's happening, anything like that that is meant to be a persuasive piece to your panel of judges, as well as the audience that you're presenting to. So you've found your topic. Now what are the next steps? So your next step is to actually write your speech. So there's going to be 3 major parts to your speech, which will be your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. In your introduction, you want to make sure to start with something that's going to attract the attention of both the judges and the audience that are listening to your speech and spark an interest in them so they actually want to sit and listen to your entire speech. The next part is going to be the body of your speech. So that's going to be the meat of your speech. So know the best way to lay out your speech. Depending on your topic, it might be laying it out in chronological order. It could be lining it out by the important key events that happened in a specific industry. Whatever fits right with your topic is the way you should lay out your speech. And then, of course, lastly is going to be that conclusion where you're going to summarize up your main points. So this is where you want to hit them with what the purpose of your speech was. And if in your conclusion you say these points and it doesn't really make sense to the audience, then that means maybe you need to go back to and look at your body of your speech to make sure you're truly covering what you said is important to you. So our public speaking contest is pretty straightforward. You're going to write a speech, present the speech, answer some questions on the speech, and then you are good to go. Next up is going to be our educational presentations. These will have a little bit more in-depth tips on how to get started with your educational presentation. So with our educational presentation, some general rules of this contest is it can be a team competition, so you can either do it by yourself or a team of two. There is a time limit of 12 minutes with 9 minutes for setup. So that 9 minutes of setup is pulling your PowerPoint or however you're going to present down onto a computer, or if you're using an actual trifold board, setting that up. If you have any visual aids or any tools that you're talking about within your presentation, setting that up as well counts towards that 9 minutes. So you have that 12 minutes to actually talk and then 9 minutes to set up your presentation. So as you can see, there's a long list of categories that you can do your educational presentation under. So we have ag, technology, and farm safety, animal science, beef, health and wellness, horse, open ed, open A&R, open family and community health, promote 4-H, and then lastly, safety and injury prevention. So as you can see, some of these categories are very self-explanatory, such as our beef and our horse category. Others are a bit broader topic areas, such as our open ag, open FCH, and open general. So those three, a lot of times are going to have a lot more people in it. So whenever you get your topic, reach out to me and let's see if we can find a place to fit your topic. And if not, it will most likely fall into one of our open categories. So you've decided that you want to do an educational presentation, but you don't know exactly how to get started. So the first step, much like our public speaking contest, is choose a topic. Find something that you're interested in, that maybe you have some experience in, and that meets your age level of knowledge. So obviously, if you're a third grader, you might not want to talk about some of that high-level scientific stuff that some of our seniors might. So really pay attention to something you're interested in, something you have experience in, and then something that matches your age level. A way to pick your topic, much like public speaking, is look at some different current issues that are happening, maybe a specific topic that meets a need in your industry, or something that's just interesting to you. So once you find your topic, the next thing is to brainstorm what you're going to talk about. What are going to be your key points that you want to hit on? Where are you going to find your research? Do you have any materials you need, like visual aids or anything like that? And then once you've brainstormed, you got a long list of some different ideas, statements you want to talk about, stuff like that, you'll then prioritize this list and you'll keep in cold those points that you really think will bring home the entire objective of your presentation. So you've gotten your topic, you've figured out your research, you have your key points. So now let's put all the pieces together. So through your educational presentation, you will create either a PowerPoint, a trifold board, a Prezi, some way to put this information out to an audience. So you'll start with an introduction, your body, your summary, your references, and then questions and answers. So again, you have 12 minutes to talk about a topic that's backed by research. Maybe you have some personal pictures, anything like that. So it's like you're putting together a presentation that you would present in front of your class. So the first step, again, much like our public speaking contest, is your introduction piece. So this slide can be one slide, it can be multiple slides, but you need an attention grabber, whether that's a statement with some different stats in it, or if it's a joke, or if it's even polling the crowd. You need something to get them interested in your topic and make it worth your time as well as their time. If it's not something that you're not interested in, they're not interested in, they're likely to not even hear you out. So the next step would be to introduce yourself and why it's important. Say your name, the county you're from, your topic you're talking about, and why it's important to you. And that why it's important can also be a stat. Just depending on what you're talking about, if it's something you're personally relating to, you can just put in a stat there and that will explain its importance to the crowd. And then of course, on maybe a second slide, third slide, wherever you would like it, highlight the key points that you're going to go over in your presentation. So you've got your introduction slide done, and now you're going to work on the body of your presentation. So this is going to be the longest section of your presentation. This is the real meat of your presentation. So this is where all of your educating is going to come through. all the research you've done, all the personal experiences, anything like that is going to be in this portion of the presentation. So in your presentation, you need to pay attention and see if it's focused on how to do something, or is it more informing of a topic? So is it focused on how to make a cake, or are you going to talk about the history of making a cake? So depending on what you're doing in your presentation, you'll want to make sure that your visual aids effectively showcase those steps or information. So this might be using a PowerPoint slide, it might be using a trifold board, or it might be using actual visual aids that are in front of you. If you're looking at the history of a cake mix, maybe you have some different varieties of cake mixes, maybe from the start to where we are now, just to have in front of you and learning how to use those items while presenting. So using visual aids can definitely be an effective way to get your point across, but something that you do need to pay attention to if you're going to use actual visual aids in person, or if this is a team event, make sure to work on the practice and the flow of your presentation. You don't want it to seem robotic or just awkward when y'all are reacting with each other. So make sure you're doing a lot of talking and doing, but making sure you're balancing that it's not too heavy on the talking, or you're just picking up a bunch of random items. You don't want that, because that just takes away from what you're trying to educate the audience on. And then lastly, make it yours. Obviously, our younger kids, y'all might have to read off note cards more often than our older kids. But even if you're having to read off note cards, make sure you're telling the story rather than just reciting it. It's not as fun when you're hearing people talk robotically, like they've had this memorized for years and years and they know exactly what they're supposed to say. So just make sure that you're taking your time, you're really telling what you're trying to educate the audience with, versus just regurgitating what you found or saw on a note card. So you've put all of your work into the body of the presentation. So the last thing to do is to work on that conclusion and summary. So you're going to want to review your points. So your big key points that were made in that body of your presentation, as well as what you talked about in your introduction. Make sure you review those points, be short and concise with that information. This is just how you're going to wrap up your 10 to 12 minute presentation that you just gave. You want them to leave with the most important pieces of information that you found during this research. So you want a nice clean way to wrap it up. And like I said, just make sure to be concise with the information and don't overshare or regurgitate too much information. So one of your last slides is going to be a reference slide. And so it is really important, especially during the contest, but even in school, college, anything like that, to document your information. Citing our references provides some type of validity to our information that we used in our presentation. So in your last slide or on your poster somewhere, make sure to list all of your references you used. When saying them out loud, if you're referring to a website, you don't have to say the wwws or the HTTPS. You can have it listed on your slide, but you don't have to say it out loud. And then one of the things to watch for when you are trying to find your references or you're doing your research, make sure to use .edu sites, .org sites, .gov sites, anything like that. They're going to be a little bit more reputable sites than some of your .com or .org type sites. So the last portion of your educational presentation contest, after you've given your presentation, you have all this extra knowledge in your head, is the questions and answer portion. So the judges do have time to ask you some questions. So when they ask you a question, just make sure to repeat the question out loud for the audience, because usually the judge is sitting right in front of you, so it might be easy for you to hear him, but maybe not everyone else. So when you repeat that question, then go into your answer. Plus, that'll give you some time to really think about what they asked you before just blurting out an answer. And then lastly, just make sure to answer honestly. If you know the answer or you think you know the answer, then of course give it. I would not recommend any like wild guesses or anything like that, because many times the judges who are judging you are going to know the answer to the question they're asking. but sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's opinion related, and they're just kind of wanting to hear what your thoughts are. But if you don't know the answer, then don't tell them you don't know, but you can say something like, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will investigate it and find out something for the next time. And then, of course, really seek out that answer. And then maybe someday that information will come in handy. And if not, at least you know what that is. So then once you're done with your questions and answer portion, just thank the judges for their time, and you are done with your educational presentation experience. So before we move on to our last contest of County Roundup, I just want to give you some tips and tricks on kind of preparing your educational presentation. So one of the things is, if you're going to have props or any types of visual aids, they're great to add to your presentation. They enhance it tremendously, but you need to make sure that you're comfortable using those while you're presenting your information. You need to practice with those props. If the contest is the first day that you're using those props or those visual aids, I can promise you it will be noticeable to the judges. So just make sure you're practicing with those ahead of time. When you have your presentation, make sure you have someone look over your grammar or any spelling issues, anything like that, and have them provide feedback to your presentation so it's organized, it looks clean, and there's nothing like grammar getting the judges focused on that versus what you're speaking about. So I talked a little bit about organization. Make sure it is easy to start with everything in place. Practice where you place each thing as you go. So this is with props again. And you don't want to finish up with your material strung out everywhere. So keep your props organized if you're going to have some in front of you. Don't just pick it up and then toss it somewhere else. Make sure you pick it up and put it back where you get it. And just make sure your area is just clean. That way, if you have to go back to talk about one of those props, it's easy to remember exactly where they're at. So make sure you have plenty of practice with your presentation. When you're putting it together, make sure you don't have something that's just overwhelming, whether it's your trifold poster, a PowerPoint, anything like that. Keep the bullet points to a minimum, or at least the words to a minimum on your bullet points, because you want them to pay attention more to what you're saying versus what they're trying to read as you're reading it. So keep bullet points minimal or the words minimal, and just know the information and be able to share that to your judges. The most important things are the next three, which is smile, be excited about your topic, and use eye contact. We don't want you standing up there looking like you don't want to be here, that you're not excited about what you're talking about, that you're just looking at the ground. That's just not good stuff to do while you're presenting. So if you're practicing and you're really enjoying your topic, those three should be really easy for you. The next one is your voice. Make sure you're fluctuating your voice at the correct moments, that you're speaking loud, you're clear. All of that plays into how well your educational presentation is presented to your panel of judges as well as the audience. And then lastly, watch your mannerisms. I know you can't see me right now, but I typically talk a lot with my hands. So sometimes you want to make sure that that's not taking away from your presentation or the visual aids you have in front of you. So make sure you watch your hand movements. You're not fidgeting, you're not rocking back and forth. Sometimes when people present, they will walk from side to side of their presentation, which is perfectly okay, but just make sure it's not actually taking away from what you're presenting. So our last contest that we have at our county roundup is going to be our Share the Fun category. So for those of you that do theater or UIL, modern oratory, any of that, this could be a contest that is made directly for you. So general rules for Share the Fun, it can be either an individual or up to 9 members. There's a time limit of 6 minutes for your presentation, 4 minutes for setting up and breaking down either your props, your scenery, if you have flags, setting your flags out. So visuals may be used, but they do have to fit through a 6 by 7 foot door or doorway, and space is very limited. So you don't want to have anything too massive or anything like that. And then as you can see, there's a long list of prohibited items just because when we go to Texas 4-H Roundup, we are using A&M's campus. And so this is all stuff that you are not able to use in their facilities. So we just make sure to not use it at county or district. So with Share the Fun, there's 7 different categories for you to choose from. There's Celebrate 4-H, which is going to be an entire skit based on a 4-H program. Could be record books, could be joining 4-H, anything like that. You have your choreographed routines. That one's pretty self-explanatory. That could be a flag routine, if you're in dance, tap dancing, jazz, any of that. Then we have our variety show. So this is going to be a new category this year. It used to be our dramedy category, but now it's our variety show. So anything that can't fit into the other 6 categories will most likely fall into this category. We have our musical and instrumental. So if you're in band and you like solo performances, maybe that's a category for you. We have our poetry and prose. So if you're in UIL modern oratory, oral reading, anything like that, this could be a really great category for you. Next, we have our solo and band performance. So that's going to be a little different than our musical and instrumental. In solo and band, you actually can sing. You have instruments. You can, as I said, be a band or a solo act. And then lastly, we have our vocal. So vocal is going to be singing only, no instruments. So if you want more in-depth descriptions on these categories, please feel free to visit our county webpage. I have them all listed there. And you can see if maybe one of these fits for something that you want to do. The Celebrate 4-H is a really fun one. It's a fun way to talk about the 4-H program and how it's impacted you or anything like that. When we did it, we did Wizard of Oz, and it was all about joining 4-H. So some important dates about our county roundup. On March 18th, county roundup registration is due, and you will submit that through our county webpage. We have a tab on our webpage for county roundup. You'll go and submit that form, and it doesn't ask for a whole lot of information, just what contest you're participating in, and then if you're doing any of them in teams, that you put in their information as well. If you are doing a team event like Share the Fun, and that's the only contest you're doing, just have one person submit for your team. So I don't have 6 different entries for the same exact entry. On March 31st is the actual county roundup contest. It'll be at the 4-H building. We don't have a time just yet because I'm waiting to see how many entries we have and how early we need to start so we don't have y'all there too late. On April 11th, that is when District 7 roundup registration is due, and that will take place completely online. And then on April 29th, our District 7 Roundup will happen, and that'll be at the Great Creek Baptist Church in Great Creek. So I hope you learned a little bit about what County Roundup is, learned how to put together a speech, educational presentation, or maybe found an interest in our Share the Fun contest. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or give us a call here at the office, and I will try to answer them in however I can.